you can't hit a target that you're not aiming for. It's really important that we get clear on what we want, because that's actually 90% of the reason why we don't have it.
Hey ladies, welcome back to another episode of B3 Boss Babies and Thoughts. While I talk about all things motherhood, entrepreneurial, and how to have fun with everything in between. I'm your host, Jessyca with a Y, and I cannot wait to dive into today's topic. So make sure to grab your favorite cocktail, sit back, relax, and unwind. Let's have some fun. Hey ladies, welcome to today's episode of Boss Babies and Bottles B3 with me, your host, Jessyca with a Y. Today I have a special guest, Miss Amy Lee Westervelt. Thank you for joining.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so Amy Lee is a dream design coach, ladies, and a mindset expert who works predominantly with empath entrepreneurs. So through her signature programs and coaching, she really has assisted in the transformations of thousands of business owners, from anxious and unaware to empowered and abundant. So her unique kind of law of attraction centric approach really marries the gratitude and personal value. She just really strives to leave her clients with an affinity for the finer things in life and a deeper belief in their worthiness for those experiences. So Amy, thank you so much again for joining. Trust me, truly appreciate it, especially during all the craziness going on throughout these days.
I know. It's like you couldn't have written a story that would have been more insane than what we're going on right now in our country.
No, it's crazy. So, but let's dive in a little bit and just kind of get to know a little bit better, more about you.
Sure. So I am a dream design coach. And what that basically means is that I work with empaths and highly sensitive people on figuring out what they really want. In my experience, just working with empaths and highly sensitives on being empaths, I found that there was a very real block in most people when it came to figuring out what they actually want. Mm-hmm. Yes, they know they want more, but they're not really sure what that is. And so there's a lot of energy that was expelled just kind of being frustrated about not having a plan. So I created what I call the Dream Design Blueprint, which is a 3-step process that helps people really kind of compartmentalize what it is that they're trying to create, so that they can put their energy into manifesting and creating it rather than trying to figure out what it is.
Mm-hmm. I love that, because so many people, I feel like, kind of just really get stuck in this realm of what to do, where to start, and all of that.
Yeah, exactly. And then they start blaming themselves for why they don't have it or why they're not good enough. And then, it kind of cascades and nothing really gets done. Mm-hmm. So it's much better to kind of go in and figure that stuff out ahead of time. And then you can really, because you can't hit a target that you're not aiming for.
Exactly.
And so a lot of people are kind of pulling up to the drive-through of the universe asking for food instead of, I want a cheeseburger with no ketchup with, XYZ. It's like, I'll take whatever. Mm-hmm. And so it's really important that we get clear on what we want, because that's actually 90% of the reason why we don't have it.
Exactly. When people are not clear, they go into that whole limiting beliefs, like they can't do it or it's too hard or whatever. And so you kind of really just establish a path for them.
Yeah, exactly. Just kind of giving them pieces to work at, step by step, so that when they get to that end result, they know exactly, okay, this is what I'm trying to create. And then the manifesting part is easy. It really is. It's the going back and the push and pull of what do I really want that's really taking up all the energy. Kind of think of it like if you were trying to vacuum seal something, but there was a hole in it and you're pulling all the air out of it, but like the air is escaping everywhere. Mm-hmm. That's kind of the same thing that happens when you don't know what you want and you're trying to manifest it. It's like you're manifesting, but there's holes everywhere and you're not getting the full capacity of your energy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally get that. So I guess then tell me a little bit more about Gratitude and Glamour, which is the name of your company. Why'd you start it?
So Gratitude and Glamour is, these are the two real high values that I have. I believe that gratitude is about being thankful for what we already have. But I think we also come from, especially as women, we come from a society where we're expected to kind of settle. We're expected to be complacent and happy with what we have and not to aspire for more. And so for me, glamour is all about aspiring to more. And I believe that only when we're at our highest vibration, taking optimal care of ourselves, can we do our greatest good in the world. don't. So for me, glamour represents making sure that I'm firing at all cylinders, that my, not in this case because I bite them, but my nails are done, my makeup is done. I am at my highest vibration so I can be the best coach, so I can be the best mother, the best wife, the best community member, the best earthling. So that's a really big part of it. It's okay to be grateful, but to also want more, because if we don't do that, then we stagnate. And then there's really no point in continuing to live, because we're just kind of like, at that like paycheck to paycheck place, which some people would argue is kind of like hell.
Yeah. I mean, I personally can't even imagine what it would be like to live like that anymore. But I do remember the time where I did, or when I was under, and it's a struggle, and it's true. Taking care of yourself and you feeling well really helps create everything around you. And the manifestation is huge. And I talked about this in previous podcasts on how, I know it's hard, but once you have a goal and once you have a clear vision as to what you want, then the rest kind of really falls into place, because you're really just working towards whatever it is that you now have a clear picture of in your head.
Yeah, exactly. And you're putting that passion into it too, because you actually want it. It's not just something that you're like, oh, that's in a catalog and I didn't even know what that was 5 minutes ago, but now I'm obsessed with it. It's something that came from your soul's true desire that you will stop at nothing. It's like if one of your kids was sick and needed some kind of medicine and you had like 24 hours to find it. I mean, you'd be knocking on every door in your neighborhood. You'd be collecting cans. You would find a way because it mattered. So when you can connect to what it is you really, truly desire, which again, is what the universe wants you to do in this life. That's why it feels so good, right? So there's like that incentive. When you can connect to that, you uncover a manifestation power that is unlike anything else in this world. It's why people are able to manifest multi-million dollars, cars that they want, things that they want, because they're attached to a greater why. They're attached to some deeper desire.
Mm-hmm. I love it. And so how did you get to kind of where you are today?
So I actually started in a network marketing company. I joined that network marketing company pretty early on with the expectation that I would be able to be a leader and a visionary and empower the people that were part of the company to do these things back then. And after time went on, I realized that I was not in alignment with the values of the company anymore. They wanted people to do things a little bit more toward depending on the company. And I was more of the mindset of like, this is all because of you. And that's really a big part of what I do. I empower people to change their lives. I don't change people's lives. I don't. But I showed them how to do it. And I showed them the fact that they've had that power their whole entire lives. Mm-hmm. So that kind of is what happened. And so I decided after making, multi 6 figures, multi 7 figures, actually, if I added up, I wasn't aligned with them anymore. And so I decided to go off on my own and start coaching. And I did that in 2018. And at first it was kind of people that were either part of that company that had left or people that were still there. But then as time went on, I kind of branched out, I did more podcasts and things like this, and I made more connections. And so now it's 2 years later, and I've probably coached thousands of people at this point.
That's awesome.
In various capacities.
Yeah, that's awesome. In 2.5 years, that's definitely huge. So that's super exciting. Almost 3 years now, right?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
That's awesome. So obviously B3 is full of lots of women that listen to us. And I guess I would love to, what would your tips and your advice be for women who kind of just feel stuck, whether it's their career, their business and life, just women that just kind of feel stuck at this point?
I think the first thing I would suggest, so I don't know if I said this already, but I have 5 children. I have 5 children under the age of 8. So my oldest is 8, my youngest is 1.
Jesus.
We homeschool.
That's all I can say.
What?
I'm like, Jesus. That's all I can say.
My husband's a stay-at-home dad, and I'm the breadwinner, right? Mm-hmm. So one of the things that I think keeps us stuck is that we don't feel like we deserve more. We feel like we're mothers, we're wives, and we're kind of at the bottom of the totem pole. But if you notice, if you look at like a beehive, right? Mm-hmm. The queen bee, all she does is sit around and get fed and like stroked and all these other things by the rest of the hive. She doesn't do any work. She just makes other bees. And that is because bees understand that there is a lot of weight and a lot of value in creation, right? Like she is what keeps them making more bees. So without her, they don't exist. And so I think that a lot of times we think like we're supposed to wipe all the noses first, and we're so, you know, like in Cinderella, if you get all your work done and if you find something suitable to wear, then you can read a magazine, then you can take a bubble bath. But again, going back to that glamour piece, it's really important that we do it the other way around, because if we are at our highest vibration, we have clear heads, you know, we're doing better with our children. They're getting more of their mother. They're getting more of us in a good mood, right? Like we're not creating little head cases for down the road. I mean, how many times have you ever like, you're trying to get, you know, the living room clean, or you're, you know, doing something and you didn't drink any water and you're just like, oh, I'm just not going to do anything for myself until this is done. And then your little one trots into the room and is like, Mom, look at my picture. And you're like, I have a headache. And it's like, you think you're doing them some great service by withholding your needs from yourself, but it comes back around
always,
and it doesn't help them anyway. So that's number one. The second thing is, if you're feeling stuck, then you might need to start thinking about what it is you truly desire. Like, what is it that you don't have that you feel is missing? And you might need to start to slow down and figure out what that is. So start with how you feel. If you're feeling like, well, you know, I'm bored. Okay, well, what would it feel like if you weren't bored? And then kind of tap into that feeling. And then as you tap into the feeling, the next thing you'll find is that you'll want to know, okay, well, what would I be thinking if I wasn't bored? And then finally, what would be, and this is my blueprint, by the way, what would be the tangible outcomes that would show an alien that dropped into my kitchen that I wasn't bored?
Yeah.
And so once you can figure out what that is, now you're like, oh, I want to go to a paint night. Let me run over and schedule a paint night and call 3 of my girlfriends, and so-and-so is going to bring the wine, so-and-so is going to bring the cheese. You had to get through that moment of like, how do I feel? I don't want to feel this way. How can I flip it? And then how can I create something that's dissonant to this?
Exactly. And I see that all the time, you know, and sometimes we just do that one thing that's for us, and all of a sudden everything feels better, you know? For me, sometimes it's like, it's planning, or it is going out with my girls or whatever, you know, and all of a sudden I just feel like a brand new person.
And it doesn't have to be some grand gesture.
Yeah.
It could be, everybody bring a paper bag from the grocery store and we're going to do like potato stamps. Like, it doesn't have to be something crazy. We're all going to watch 80s movies at my house. Bring your favorite kind of ice cream and one topping. And then you kick all the guys out, you make them watch the kids, and you just watch 80s movies.
Love it. Yeah.
You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be something like, oh my God, we all went to Vegas. Like, people think that money is the reason why they don't have what they want. The reason they don't have what they want is because they don't know what they want.
Yep. They don't know what they want. And I think a lot of people are also, you know, and I hate saying it like this, but I do feel like it's this, sometimes they don't want to put in the work.
Right. They don't. But not even just work. They don't want to put in the planning. Cause like, what if I said to you, okay, you can go to Hawaii for 10 days, 3 years from now, just put $13 away a week. You'd be like, yeah, but nobody does that. Nobody says, okay, I can take my dream vacation, but it's going to take me 5 years and I've got to put it on the calendar and I have to put this money away.
Yep.
You know, like there's so much planning that goes into it.
Yeah. The instant gratification is definitely something that I think stops people from achieving what they want to achieve. So what is the biggest trend that you kind of see women really fall into?
I am so glad you asked, because there's an answer for this. The biggest trend that I see women fall into is what I call I'll fill this out later culture. So quizzes, you know, assessments, journal prompts, anything, they cannot slow their brains down enough to fill out questions. And so there's always this, I'll fill this out later. Oh, I'll do this later. I'll get it done later. Girlfriend, there is no later. This is your life. It is passing you one day at a time. You have to slow down enough. And I know it's not your fault. I know that your attention span, like what were we watching? Pretty in Pink the other day. And Molly Ringwald has this scene where she like walks into wherever the prom is being held. And it took her like 15 freaking minutes to walk across this. Like, I was bored. But I know that in the 80s, like that was fine. Like people's attention spans could handle that. they can't handle that now. Like I was like, oh my God, this is like watching paint dry, just walk faster. Like I'm bored. But we don't realize that, right? Like we don't understand how much more our brains have tuned to like the fifth dimension, like how much more, you know, aware we're becoming.
How much like faster paced we want everything too.
Yeah. And so sometimes we have to like sit down and go, no, I'm not going to do anything else until I answer this question. This question, number one on this sheet, I'm not doing anything else. Instead of looking at it and going, oh my, there's 18 questions. No, I'm not doing this.
It happens to me all the time. If I have to go to like a new doctor and I have to fill out the 20,000 sheets that they give you, I'm like, are you freaking serious?
I know. I know. Like we have computers now. Can't you just take this from the other doctor?
Like I'm not dying. I'm just here to look at something. Let's go. Totally. Oh my God. That's a huge, huge, huge thing. So, you know, I always see this happen to, you know, a lot of people in general, you know, but I do think that one of the points you brought up about, you know, women were told that we're supposed to fit into this space, that this is how our life is supposed to be lived. And, you know, something I love talking about always on this podcast is that we can do whatever we want. We are the badasses, not men, you know, and it's not us versus them. And that's not the kind of mentality, but I feel like it's because society has always said, you know, you're a woman, this is what you do. You know what I mean? That's why I kind of say that like that, and just kind of letting women know, like, we can do anything. We can do everything too. We can take care of our kids. We can take care of our house. We can take care of ourselves, and we can have a business, and we can do it all while looking, in your case, very glamorous.
Oh, thank you. I think another thing too about that, what you just said, that's really powerful is that we want the female, right? Like we want the female and the female prettiness and the female nurturing, but what we don't want is her to turn on that feminine energy, because the feminine energy is inside everyone. Masculine and feminine are inside men and women, but that feminine energy is dangerous, because that feminine energy is where the creation happens. That's where the manifestation happens. And we try to silence that in the female population, which essentially is kind of like making us like placeholders, right? Like kind of like the Stepford wives, you know, where they take them and they take their personality out. That part of us, that fiery ability to manifest, to create things in our lives and in the world, is something that's very dangerous to people who don't understand divine feminine. So yes, you're right. But at the same time, men have that too.
It's true.
And the men are also, if you think about it, they're asked to kind of shut that down too, right? That creative power, that, because that now what they call it on that side is toxic masculinity, but it's not toxic masculinity. It's the creative, like, come out power from within on either side. And so I would argue that it's that power that people are trying to silence, and women have that in spades. Like we have that resiliency and the resourcefulness, and to people who want to control other people, that's dangerous.
I 1000% agree. I love it. But yes, a lot of women do silence a lot of their femininity, and that's not good. That's where a lot of women lose themselves very easily. It's very easy to do on a day-to-day basis when we have so much to do. You know, when you have 5 kids in your case, I have twins, and they're my first set. And well, my first set, I say that as if I'm going to have another set. God knows. That's not what I meant by my first kids, you know? And I'm like, no, I'm super empowered when I can do it all, but I can also be everything else I need to be, you know? And it's finding the right time and space to do everything, which is the most important. Not every single moment of the day am I the kids' moms. No, some days I am the wedding planner right now, or I am, you know, the podcaster at this moment. And so just finding the right space to do everything and doing it efficiently, because when you try to do everything, you're not giving anything 100% versus kind of, I don't want to say compartmentalizing or balancing. Like some days my kids are more important. Some days my work is more important. And, you know, I was talking about this in another episode with, it's not a balance as much as what's the most important, prioritizing and giving that 100%. And when you're with your kids, that's 100%, you know, because they know when you're not giving them 100%.
Oh, totally. And you know, when you catch that sometimes and you're checking your phone and they're saying goodnight or something, and they kind of just go, mom. And it's like, you're waking up from like some stupor and you just feel bad. And you're just like, why? Like, and I mean, again, It's not anybody's fault because let's be real, social media is addicting. Like, I don't care what anyone says, it is. And thanks to all those dopamine hits that we get from it. But at the same time, yeah, there definitely is, like, we have to work really hard to be who we are when everything else is trying to mold and shape us. And because we're women and we are tending to be so emotional, and that, you know, that part of us is so much higher, we don't even have boundaries. Like, we feel like we don't deserve to have our own space. And people feed off of that, right? Like, people are like, yeah, well, you know, you're a mother. Like, you know, I'm not a martyr. I'm a mama. Like, there's a big difference.
Yep.
And I don't have to, you know, I don't have to eviscerate myself on the altar of mommyism in order to be a good mother. Like, I have my time. My husband knows, like, when I'm in here and the door shut, don't send the kids in. And he doesn't, you know, and it's like, but at the same time, my clients know between the hours of, like, say, like 5 and 7 p.m., like, if you message me, I'm not going to be there because I'm hanging out with my kids.
Yeah. That's the same thing. That's my bedtime routine. That's my time with them. That's the time that I've chosen. And that's the time they've chosen, really. And I've molded around their schedule, but it's the time before they go to bed.
And the other thing too is that, you know, they try to make mothers think that every minute you spend away from your kids, that they're somehow suffering. But your kids don't want to be with you all the time either. Like, you're not the center. I mean, yes, you are when they're babies and you're nursing, but you're not the center of their universe. Yeah. Like, they also want to have play dates. They also want to be with their father or the au pair. It's not taking away from them that you go to the bathroom and lock the door. Mm-hmm. And there are people that will make you think that if you are not, you know, basically sacrificing yourself for your children, that you're somehow doing them a disservice. Mm-hmm. I would argue that if you are sacrificing yourself fully for your children, that's when you're doing them a disservice, because they're not going to know what to do when they get to school or when they get to their job. And we see this all the time, right? How many grown men live at home with their parents? And it's not, you know, because it's the cool thing to do. It's because they probably just never let go.
Yeah. And a lot of it has to do with the parents, you know?
Oh, totally.
It's like, it's not like, some people are like, oh no, because he doesn't want to move out of the house, or she, whatever. It doesn't matter who it is. And I'm like, a lot of it has to do with the parenting too. A lot of them, they feel like they can't. And because they feel like they can't, that comes from something else.
Right.
You know?
Right. That comes from over attachment from the parent. Mm-hmm. And they have, you know, and that's the other side of the spectrum.
Yeah.
But I mean, and I think that for my daughter, you know, she's 8 and she reads at like a 9th grade level. She is so inspired, you know, when she tells her little friends, like, my mom's a dream design coach and she helps people use the law of attraction to make their lives. Like, she loves that. And she doesn't even know
so
what
cute at 8 years old. I'd be like, yeah, no, your mom does. That's awesome.
But at the same time, you know, something, she doesn't even know how good she has it. She's like, I don't want to go in the theater and watch movies, Mom. And I'm like, really? Like, do you even know how many of your friends would die to have a movie theater in their house? But to her, it's just regular. You know, she doesn't understand that some parents leave their kids all day to go to work. She's like, you're always working. I'm like, girlfriend, let me tell you about what it was like to get up in the morning at your dad's house when it was his weekend to have you, and get up on a Monday morning at 4:30 in the morning so he could drive you home to your house so you could get ready for school at your house. Like, you don't even understand. Like, you just don't get it.
No. I was saying that, something like that to my husband the other day. I was like, my kids are not going to have any idea we grew up in these small, tiny houses, and our kids are going to grow up in these gorgeous homes. And so keeping them, you know, humble, and just keeping them, even if, you know, we're always the ideal situation, right? You always want to give your kids better than what you had. So you're, in essence, you should have better than what your parents ended up giving you, or you're giving your kids something better. So in essence, it's always trying to keep our kids, you know, humble, and keeping our kids down to earth, which is hard because we've worked hard to reach a certain level of success.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, but
exactly. It doesn't matter how good this is. Have the same amount of gratitude, whether it's an ice cream or it's a Disney World, you know, like, the gratitude doesn't have to change.
That is true. It doesn't have to be an all-expense paid trip to Europe for you to be happy.
Exactly. Because the feeling is the same. I mean, you can dial it up some, but for the most part, it's the same feeling.
Yeah. I mean, I'd be happy with an ice cream. I'm not gonna lie.
I would too.
You're like, oh, cool, you brought me ice cream. Those are the things.
Because it's the thought. It's the thought that matters.
Small things for me. I always say it. It sounds dumb, but I'm like, it's the small things for me, you know?
Yeah.
At the end of the day. So that's awesome. So if you could give yourself your younger self a piece of advice, what would it be?
Don't give a shit what the bitches say.
That's my quote. We're going to quote that. Don't give a shit what the bitches say. Love it.
All the time that I wasted caring what people that mattered zero in my life ever
On this
thought of me. And how much now looking back, how much was about their feelings of themselves. I would not take 1 minute to care about how somebody else felt I was doing this or raising my kids or running my business. I wish, oh man, all the gray hairs and all of the stress that I could get back, all that time of just not care. I mean, my husband's great at that. Like, I'd be like, oh my God, did you see what so-and-so said about me? And he'd be like, yeah, and?
Guys,
and now I'm like,
that's what guys are. We're the ones that are like, oh, and I say it because I whisper because my husband's like right over there. But I'm like, he's like that too. He's like, what does it matter? I don't think that. And I'm like, yeah, but she does. He goes, but I don't. And I'm like, all right, I guess you're right.
Yeah. Somebody said to me once, like, how cool is it? Because I was getting like seriously in my network marketing company, I was getting real bad haters, right? And when I left, and somebody was like, how cool is it that you're their CNN? And I was like, girl,
look at it, right? It's on how you look at it.
Like, how cool is it that you are somebody's news? Are you kidding me? So good.
No, it's true though. You can't care what other people say, because at the end of the day, they don't know your life. They don't know what you're going through. They don't know what you've been through. You know, everyone has their own challenges, their own things. So yeah, keep doing you. Love it. So of course, this wouldn't be the Boss Babies and Bottles podcast if I didn't ask you the last question. What's your favorite bottle or drink?
I really love those little Kahlua mudslides.
Ooh.
They come in like a little bottle, and I don't know if they've had them lately, because like I sent my husband to the store for them a couple weeks ago, and they were like, we don't have those, but they were cute. They were like this big. They had like mudslide and White Russian, and they're just like little coffee type drinks, and they were my favorite. And if anybody knows where I can get them, hit a girl up.
I'm sure we had to be able to find them. You know, the last time I had a mudslide, I was in the Caribbean, and I'm reminded of how much I hate COVID and how much I want to travel again. And go get myself a mudslide on the side of the beach or something.
They're just so good though. It's like you're drinking coffee, but you're drinking booze, and you're like, I'm relaxed, but I'm and it's productive.
Productive, sure. I'd like productive, like maybe 1 in. After
Well,
the productivity does try to, like, the more I have, the less productive, you know, whatever that curve is.
Right, but at the same time though, to be fair, you never notice how sometimes, like, when you have like a glass of wine, your creative mind kind of opens up a little more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you're like, everything else go.
Yeah, because your subconscious is kind of allowed to talk, because usually your conscious mind is like, nope, you shut up, we're doing what we're supposed to do. And your subconscious is like, you know what? You're over there inebriated, and I'm going to do the thinking.
Say drunk person don't lie.
Right.
That's what they say. That's true. All right. Thank you so much, Amy Lee, for joining us today. I had such a great time with you, and hopefully our listeners did too. I'm just excited for them to hear this and hopefully have learned something. And of course, now we need to put a disclaimer on this podcast, but hey, you know, those are the best ones. So thank you so much for joining. I will see you guys on the next one. Talk to you soon.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I cannot wait to chat with you guys soon. So make sure if you haven't already, subscribe to our next episode and follow my craziness on Instagram at EBJ Events and at canal.twins. I promise you, something's always happening.